They were all on the same level. The Yidden were all on the same level by this point because they're about to receive the Torah, and they were like about probably by this point on the 48th level or the 49th level. I'm not sure. How can the Talmud take the creme de la creme, like the Yidden that were on that higher level?
Because they're not on the same level. They're absolutely not on the same level.
How though? Because I thought when they were in slavery, they were like 49 levels below, and if they had like gone one down, they'd be irredeemable. But in order to receive the Torah, they then had to go up. Isn't that the whole thing of the Omer?
Okay. Yes, but it's so much more complicated than that. In general, in our relationship with God, there's what God does and what we do. What He does, He usually does pretty good. What we do, that's another story. And there's another part of another story. And that is, every human being, at every moment of his life or her life, is the sum of the total of their experiences from the moment they were born. Both the experiences and the choices. Moreover, mystically, and today they would probably say it even psychologically, not only is a person the sum total of all their experiences from the moment they were born, they're the sum total of all their experience since they were born, and the quality of the parents to whom they were born. Trauma is intergenerational. There's scientific evidence for this. If a person is a smoker, his children are more likely to be smokers. If a person is an alcoholic, his children are more likely to be alcoholics. Even if they don't have the gene, they have another word for it that they use, like the makif of the genes. So a human being, not only at any moment of his life is the sum total of his own life, he's the sum total of his own life plus his entire chronological history. So to say that all people are the same is a terrible simplification.
I'm just saying, at this point, were they not at the same level?
From the God side, not from the human side.
So they still had their own...
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? And they wanted prophecy. You need to understand prophecy. We spent months learning prophecy here, last year. Prophecy is not about God, it's about man. But it's a level of excellence that is so unique that the Gemara says that there's no prophecy nowadays. Now, it isn't true there isn't no prophecy, it is virtually no prophecy. The number of requirements that a human being needs to be a prophet is so great that it excludes all of us. I think about me. Okay, I don't think I'm a prophet. I think about me. And I'm not going to talk about all of my characteristics and all of my flaws. I'm just going to think about one. Okay, just one. Using my time well. You know how the body works? The more you use it, the better it gets. You know how the mind works? The more you use it, the better it gets. Imagine using your body to its maximum possibility. Imagine using your mind to its maximum possibility. You know what you're supposed to say now?
How?
When are you going to have fun? I guess you're not American, so you don't understand that. When are you going to have fun? When are you going to enjoy life? What's the answer to that question? You're trading that in.
But isn't every time you're using your body to its full capacity, you can also include having fun?
No, they're mutually exclusive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because if you're having fun, you're not maximizing your potential, you're wasting it. You're diminishing, you're using it less. Now, realistically, if we don't go on vacation, we're going to go mad. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. But if you want to understand the kind of person who becomes a prophet, just think about this one thing. I know me. I know me for 59 years. I've watched me grow up, and I know all of my achievements. And I also know all of the things that I know for a fact I could be better at if I pushed myself harder. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm very far from perfect. And I'm a pretty successful person. I'm not a failure. But in terms of what I could be, if I simply maximize the gifts God gave me, time, and, just to give you, in my life, one of the places where this plays out, right, every time I put food in my mouth which is not healthy, I'm diminishing my use of my time. I'm diminishing the use of my mind. It's connected. But I like to eat. Now, how bad am I? How bad am I? In the barometer of a prophet, I just canceled myself. If in other words, if you want to be the best person you could eat, every piece of food you put in your mouth is measured. Because there's ambition, there's a goal to become greater and better and more closer to Hashem. You understand that?
Eventually the body will just get used to it.
That's correct. That's correct. And then, no, the body doesn't need it. It's healthy. The body doesn't need a Danish.
I was saying
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying you shouldn't eat. A prophet is a person who in every area has maximized himself as a person, beginning with his mind and ending with his body and everything in between. That is an incredibly sophisticated and whole person. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
No, that lifestyle sensitizes a person and opens up a person to what we would call inspiration. Something comes to that person which is beyond their conscious abilities, that came from God. We call it prophecy, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a state of extraordinary readiness and preparedness. You understand? Now, if you take a group of people today and you judge them, which we're not supposed to do because we don't want to judge ourselves, but if we could do it without judgment, without emotion, just objectively, right? I don't know if there's a way to make a scale, right? What percentage of me have I utilized? And every human being has to ask himself that question. In every field, the use of my mind, the use of my heart, the use of my senses, the abuse I use to my body, the efficient use of my body, the abuse of my time, the efficient use of my time. And you can go on and on. There's nothing in the world that's not a part of that measure, a part of that scale. The Jews came out of Egypt. In Egypt, they were slaves. Now, slaves, it's not their fault that they're slaves. But when you're a slave, you don't have a lot of belief in yourself because you don't own you. So if you don't own you and you don't have belief in yourself, how well do you develop yourself? How much of your mind are you using? How much of your heart are you using? How much of your senses? How much of your body are you using? How efficient are you with your time? You know what the answer to that question is? To serve my master. The difference is when you have a master, you're someone to hate. When you're a slave to pleasure, you should hate yourself. But you don't like to hate yourself, so you forgive yourself. You see? Now, Jews went from slavery in 49 days to being ready to meet God intimately. Is that fair? No. And Hashem says to Moshe, Moshe, this is a terrible idea. This is going to be a disaster. And Moshe knows. He knows full well. He says, but they want to be prophets. Moshe loved the Yidden so much. He just said this was for him the ultimate gift you could give Moshe Rabbeinu is where a Yid says, I don't care about anything, I want to meet God. He was delighted. There was never a person more suited to prophecy than Moshe. Even Mashiach is not as much a prophet as Moshe. Moshe was the perfect conduit for Ruach HaKodesh.
Why is Mashiach
not as high as Moshe? According to the Rambam, the Gemara says that based on the pasuk that Moshiach's nevuah is korev lamadregas Moshe. It's near the nobody is going to achieve the prophet Moshe Rabbeinu achieved. This is the pasuk, the last pasuk in the Chumash. Lekom oid navi, there'll never be another prophet than Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe's body, naturally, and his genealogy, where he came from, and the work he did in himself, and the life that he lived, made him the perfect conduit for nevuah. Nobody appreciated it more than he did, and he just said, let's go for it. Don't think about anything. But it was a disaster. So now, was it equally a disaster for Adar in front of an Avihu and Zlob number XY42380-2? They were not in the same place. Everybody's readiness for prophecy was dependent on so many factors. Who their parents were, how they lived, how they grew up, how much abuse it took as a slave, and how much work they did in Egypt, how much work they did since they left Egypt. So by no means were they in the same place. There's no reason you have to assume that the whole thing was one big, when you tell the story, they all died. Maybe they didn't all die. Maybe most of them died. We weren't there. The story that the Torah tells is basic. But it makes sense to say that when the Hashem gave them the first of the 10 commandments and they all died, maybe some just fainted. I don't know, maybe. And when he gave them the second commandment, a few more didn't die. I'm not saying that this didn't happen. What I'm trying to do is give you a sense of the humanity of this. This isn't just a movie. This is people. And they're very real. And this is God. And He's very real. And their meeting is very real. Meaning to say it's absolutely individual. You understand what I'm saying? And it's wonderful to appreciate this realistically. Because then you get a sense of what happened. God met millions of people like I'm meeting you. But God doesn't have a body. God is only a spirit. So they met the Spirit of God. They met the substance, the Mehus of Hashem. It's overwhelming. And they received it based on the person that they were. Some were better prepared, some were worse prepared, and none of them were ready. So when the Torah says, I'm going to meet all of you, but separate, it's reasonable. It's very reasonable.